They say that all means are good in love and war. But what if these two are the same thing? One awkward joke, one inappropriate compliment, and my life changed forever, turning into an intergalactic gladiatorial show. I've never been able to follow the rules, especially when the formidable figure of the heavenly patroness descends upon me, clad in armor as if forged from a lump of darkness. Her eyes shine like twin moons behind a black visor, and her facial features are as sharp as crystal. Her voice is deep and frightening, in the most terrifying sense of the word. I was just an ordinary hub operator, nothing outstanding. My job consisted of moving containers, loading crates, pressing buttons that made beeping sounds, and trying to understand interstellar customs codes. I wasn't supposed to be in the presence of the first spear of the defenders of the Star Order, but either fate or a bad organization led me right to her. She glanced at the invoice in my hand, then looked at me. "Earthman," she said. I swallowed. Her voice hit me like a thunderclap behind a closed door. She looked at me like I was either prey or an unappetizing snack. "You were in charge of Cargo 7. It wasn't a question. I nodded, my heart pounding. "It's me, Cassius Vega. Galactic Fleet Hub Operator, part-time. Professional seducer, full-time." She bowed her head, and her braided silver hair glowed faintly. She approached, and there was a strange aura coming from her. It was the way she pronounced the word earthling, as if it were a forbidden spell that had never before escaped her lips. Naturally, I panicked. You know, the inhabitants of Earth often use humor to lighten the situation, and apparently I said that because I looked at her hips. A serious mistake. A colossal blunder. Disaster. Her lower body was perfectly symmetrical, which must have been a tactical advantage for combat balance. Her visor lifted, revealing golden eyes and an expression of utter bewilderment. "Did you just compliment my backside?" No, I wanted to say yes, but not in that sense. She blinked once, then again, and her cheekbones, sharp and prominent, turned a light shade of purple. She blushed and then hit me. I flew backwards, crashing into a cargo pallet and knocking over a stack of thermonuclear cores. My back hurt, and my ego was hurt. Everything hurt. She came up to me, her armor clanking like a funeral march. "I agree," I groaned. "I agree with what you just made me understand. You will arrive on my warship by sunset. Bring your marriage papers. You flirted with me in front of witnesses," she said, pointing at the stunned dock crew. "You recognized the beauty of my form and tried to establish superiority through humor. These are the courtship rituals of the defenders of the Starry Order. I was just fooling around, it wasn't romantic." "The same thing," she said. "Among warriors, recklessness and courage are indistinguishable." She turned on her heel and walked away. And that's how I found myself engaged to an alien celestial patroness. The warship was called the Scarlet Reaper, which roughly translates to Blood Crystal Revenge in the language of the defenders. That should have been the first hint that this wasn't going to be a relaxing honeymoon. I was standing in the dock, surrounded by huge warriors in blackened armor. Every one of them. "You're late," she said. I looked at the strange clock, which showed that there were only 30 seconds left. My companion was either punctual, or she was expecting a reckoning. I think there was a misunderstanding. I wasn't going to propose, I was just acting like an earthling. "You did it," she said without emotion. "You're mine now." She turned away and walked away, leaving me no choice but to follow her through a huge hall decorated with glowing spheres and, as it seemed to me, embalmed heads. "I'm not familiar with your customs," I said. "I'm trying to keep up. Shouldn't there be a courtship phase?" We walked in silence. She stopped in front of the bronze doors, which hissed open. Inside was a room the size of a basketball court. One half was a serene garden with blue crystals. The other half was surrounded by guns. It was both romantic and possibly terrifying. "This is your mating room," she said calmly. I coughed. "Wow, you're our direct, heavenly patroness, no hints, right?" She slowly turned around. "There is a courting ceremony that follows the trial of fire and precedes the oath of suffering." "Okay, I'll just pretend I didn't hear it." She came closer, her eyes glowing faintly. "You're afraid of me?" "Well, yes, you're a foot taller than me, stronger than a rhino, and you're probably going to hit me next week for calling you a good girl." "You were reckless," she agreed, "but also brave. We honor such audacity." She bent down. "You intrigue me, Cassius Vega. No one flirts with the first spear, and no one survives by doing it. It's very inspiring. You have to stay here. Don't touch the ceremonial items. Don't challenge anyone to a duel. Don't die." "Wait, what?" But she's already gone. I looked around the room, then looked at the pile of marital robes left on the glowing table. One was made of chainmail. The other is made of feathers. The third one simply said, "Bite me, evil alien." I sat down and covered my face with my hands. Flirting with her had been a mistake, but now I wondered if it wouldn't have been even worse if I hadn't. They woke me up, I believe, early in the morning, banging on a drum the size of a small SUV. A loud voice echoed through the room. "The test of valor has begun. If you die, you will be replaced." What kind of test is this? 2 armored warriors escorted me, dragging me down a corridor that smelled of fire, sweat, and unresolved injuries. I was still wearing the cape with the angry symbols that I later learned meant fragile flesh. I was pushed into a large arena surrounded by snarling soldiers of the Defenders of the Star Order. The stone floor was scorched, the walls were decorated with ceremonial weapons, and in front of me stood a mountain of evil muscles and armor, sizzling with heat. "Fighter Sarvan," the herald announced, "Blade Seeker, 12-time winner of the challenge." The crowd cheered. The herald pointed at me, confused. "Ah, Earthling Cassius," he said mockingly, referring to the butt of the first spear. The crowd burst into a mixture of laughter and contempt, as if they were going to tear me apart. Sarvan raised a flaming axe and moved towards me, resembling an angry volcano. I was unarmored, wearing only flip-flops and armed only with defiant behavior. With a threatening growl, he declared, "I don't have insurance against interstellar homicide." I wanted to say something, but he just grunted and swung. I instinctively dodged, and his axe crashed into the stone wall with a deafening crash. The shock waved through me onto my back. "Okay," I muttered, "we need to keep our heads down and strategize in a panic." He roared and charged again. I rolled over, and he tripped over my lost sandal, crashing into the wall with a loud thud. The crowd gasped, and I blinked. Did I just? He stood up, blood streaming from his nose, and screamed, "Do you dare mock me, Earthling? So you did it yourself, didn't you?" I replied, brushing the dust off my cape. "I was just trying to get here, to avoid dying in flip-flops." He lunged at me, and I did the most mundane thing I could think of. I pointed behind him and shouted, "Look, your honor is running away." He reflexively turned around, and I kicked him in the back. He stumbled and crashed into a pillar, losing his balance. The crowd fell silent. Then someone clapped, then others. And then the whole hall exploded with laughter and battle cries. Sarvan lay moaning, tangled in the ceremonial banners. The horn sounded. The battle was over. The herald announced, "The Earthman Cassius has won through dishonorable cunning." There was a pause, which we now consider honorable. The crowd went wild. I was still trying to catch my breath when Aurelia entered the arena from the upper gallery. She looked at me as if I had grown a second head. "You barely survived. You were improvising in a moment of panic." "You won," she said with a slight smile. "Technically." She gestured towards the crowd, and everyone bowed, even Sarvan, who was still recovering. He was coughing up blood and smiling, as if he had just witnessed his mother kissing a volcano. "You passed the first test," she said. "Wait, the first one?" said Aurelia, her smile getting a little wider. "There are 4 more trials waiting for you before the wedding ceremony." I looked at her. "You like it," she said. "I'm preparing you for what it means to be my spouse." I muttered, "Death by flirting. What a way to leave." She turned her head, and her voice echoed through the camera. "Rest, Cassius Vega. Tomorrow is the trial by fire." I collapsed to the ground. One single compliment, that's all it took, and now I'm a gladiator in a sci-fi romance novel. God help me. It turns out that the trial by fire is not just a metaphor. It's very real. I was escorted into a circular room filled with glowing red-hot metal, flowing molten lava, and at least 3 dragons made entirely of plasma. It's probably for the entourage. I really hope it's for the entourage. The same little alien escort handed me a scroll. "To pass the trial of fire, you must forge a weapon worthy of the first spear." "I can't forge anything but excuses." The attendant blinked. "Then you will die artistically." Before I could protest, the heavy doors slammed shut. They gave me a forge and tools that I didn't know how to use, and a piece of, or that pulsed like a beating heart. Somewhere above, the elite defenders of the Stellar Order watched from balconies, conversing in their harsh language. Aurelia stood among them, regal and radiant, her gaze riveted on what was happening. "Don't die," I muttered to myself, wiping the sweat from my forehead. "Or die, but do it effectively." I swung the hammer. He jumped back. He tried again. Sparks flew up my sleeve. I panicked and accidentally dropped a piece, sending the tongs into the lava. I took a deep breath, concentrated, and tried again. After an hour of trial and error and a lot of burnt fingers, I finally achieved something. It was not a masterpiece, not even symmetrical, but still a plate. It looks more like a metal sausage with a sharp end. I proudly picked it up. The crowd fell silent. Then one of the judges laughed. Then another one. And then everyone was laughing, except Aurelia. She got up, walked slowly down the stairs, and entered the room. I swallowed. I passed. She came up to me, stared at the plate, then at me. "You forged it." "I've forged something, technically speaking." She grabbed the weapon, turned it over, and swung it. With one movement, she effortlessly chopped the heavy metal test block into 2 pieces. The sound of the blade being cut was so loud that it even drowned out the laughter. She looked at me again. The blade was uncouth, rough, and clumsy. It was excruciating, but also unexpected and effective. It was a defiant act. She returned the plate to me. "This blade is a reflection of its creator, and I approve of it." "Wait, what?" Aurelia came closer. "You're confusing me, Cassius Vega." "I'm confused myself. You lack discipline and technique. Is this encouragement or abuse? But you have spirit and courage. Fire." Her hand touched my shoulder. She flinched at the touch, as if it surprised her. Then she let her hand linger. "You make me laugh. You make me feel things I haven't felt since I was young and reckless." "Oh, you mean I make you feel young and reckless?" She blinked, stunned for a moment, and then grinned. "Be careful, I can still incinerate you." "Yes, but you won't do it." "Why not?" "Because then you'll have to find a new fool to drag him through these trials." There was a long pause. Then she giggled softly. Not a threatening growl or a war cry. A real sound of fun. She shook her head. "You're not who I expected." "And you too," she said. "I'm the patron saint of heaven, but sometimes you act like an earthling," she added. Her expression changed, as if no one had ever dared to say something like that to her before. "See you tonight," she said softly, preparing for the test of truth. "Should I bring fire-resistant sausage again?" She laughed, really laughed, and then disappeared into the fog. And at that moment, I realized something terrible. I was starting to like her. God help me. I was falling in love with a 7-foot-tall alien celestial patroness with relationship problems and an arsenal bigger than the Novaya Zemlya Navy. And the scariest thing was that she probably liked me too. The test of truth did not take place in the forge, in the arena, or in the training hall. It took place in silence, in a circular chamber of glass and starlight, hovering somewhere at the very top of the Scarlet Reaper. There were no guns, there were no spectators, just me and her. Aurelia stood in the center, dressed in something softer than armor, in deep blue ceremonial robes. Embroidered with golden scars, she looked almost like an earthling. She motioned for me to sit down, and I sat down. Then a voice, not hers, but something ancient and telepathic, echoed in my mind. "Tell your truth. You can't bond if you're carrying a lie," it said. I blinked. "Oh, we're just throwing ourselves into this, aren't we?" Aurelia spoke up first. "When I was young," she said softly, "I was trained for war, duty, and legacy. I've never known tenderness. I've never been touched with love. My mother died in the arena. My husband was chosen for political reasons. He died in battle. I've never mourned him." She didn't flinch. She didn't cry, but her eyes faded. "I never laughed until I met you." I swallowed. "I've never been brave. I admit it. I fix the drawers. I tell bad jokes when I'm nervous. I flirt when I feel small. And next to you, Aurelia, I've never felt smaller in my life." Her expression didn't change, but something in her posture softened. "I didn't come here to fight or fall in love, but I did both. Now I've said it. The truth." The room was bathed in a golden glow. She came over, towering over me, not like a warrior, but like a fierce, scarred, proud, and insecure woman. "Do you accept me for who I am?" "What is it?" she asked. I nodded. "I accept you, you sarcastic idiot with a face that begs to be hit," she replied, her lips twitching. "You are mine, Cassius Vega, and you are both terrifying and kind. Somehow you've become my home." The light above flickered, and then there was silence. The camera opened, and we went out. The team bowed, but not to her, but to us. She took my hand for the first time, not to force or intimidate, but just to hold it. "You passed all 5 tests," she said, looking at me as if I were a puzzle she wanted to solve forever. "And I passed the only one that mattered, the one that allowed someone to enter, and I was allowed to keep the weapon I forged. It was ugly, but now it's hanging over our bed. We're traveling through the stars. Sometimes she conquers planets, and I do logistics reports. Sometimes I get slapped for something stupid, but now she's kissing me. After our wedding, of course, on the battlefield in identical armor. She still calls me the soft earthling, and I call her the one who looks tactical. She never stops blushing when I say that, and a slap in the face, yes, she's still sick. But love hurts in the best sense of the word.